Good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here, as always, for another wonderful book festival season. I'm joined here by Angela, author of The Wilderness, and I should probably start with, my name's Shantaw Bloise Murphy. I'd tell you what I do, but the list is too long, so I'll just leave it at, I'm thrilled to be here. Angela, I have to tell you, you stressed me out. You stressed me all the way out with this book. I have to admit that I'm very much I'm a crime junkie, right? I love the gore, I love the mysteries. Like, give me a John Grisham in the airport as long as I can finish it before I get off the flight. That's my speed, right? And when I was introduced to this book, I thought, okay, I'm of a group of 4 Black women navigating life in our 30s, going into our 40s. Do I really want to read a book about my life? And as I dove into it, I kept thinking, well, I think I had a narrative in mind that I thought this would be. Like, it was giving Sex in the City, Friends, living single. Like, that's what I thought I was going to get, but you took us so much further that as I tried to find myself in like one character, I was like, I'm all of these people and none of them all at the same time. And I was calling my girlfriends and being like, oh my God, you have to read this book because girl, like Desiree is on one. And then I'm calling someone else. I'm like, January, doesn't that remind you of? And I'm like, you guys have to get this book. So now your book has turned into the Sisterhood of Traveling Pants in my friend group, by the way. So I'm curious, I'm going to let you tell everybody else about the book because I feel like I'm just going to go too far. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your novel?
Sure. I should say I'm sorry for stressing you out. Very happy to be here. Thank you all for coming. The Wilderness is about. Oh, thank you. So The Wilderness follows, as you said, a group of Black women friends over 20 years, from their early 20s into their 40s. And I like to think of it as, when I was thinking about writing the book, I aspired for it to be a real coming of age book. I feel that culturally there are a lot of touchstones for just becoming a young adult, right? Leaving your parents' home, getting out of adolescence, but how to become an adult who pays all their own bills, who perhaps is losing parents, perhaps is becoming a parent, is having to figure out, how am I not gonna just make it in life but be satisfied in life? There are fewer of those kinds of books, maybe because, I don't know, it doesn't seem as sexy to think about, like, how do I become a good middle-aged person, but that's what I was interested in writing. And so we follow those women over from the late 2000s into a little bit into the future, into the late 2020s. And that was my aspiration, was to think about how their friendships evolved during that time, how they evolve alongside the past 20 years of American life, and what role does sort of public life play in their private lives.
So with so many different narratives throughout the book, right? We talk a little bit about social justice. There's romance naturally sprinkled in there. There was a little crime there with a touching of the maybe in between the chest, who knows, we're still trying to figure it out. But I'm curious, with all those different narratives, what drew you to a focus on friendship?
Well, friendship has been really essential to my life, not just the friends that I've had, but also the friends that my mother had played a big role in how I grew up, how I was able to grow up. My mother depended on her friends for childcare, for sometimes material support, but certainly emotional support. And I just would not have had like a real life without that. But a lot of books that purport to be about friendship, especially ones that are supposed to be about women's friendships, often are about women coming together to commiserate about their love lives. And the friendship is not treated as a central thing. And I really wanted this to be a romance about friends. Like the do they or don't they, will they or won't they, is like, will they stay together? Like, how can they navigate life and still have space for each other, versus it being about like will they find a man, and then can they go to brunch and talk about the man kind of thing, which is great, but that's fine, but it didn't seem like the kind of friendships that I had, and it didn't feel sort of deep enough and just honest enough, and I endeavored to write a book into that space that I desired.
I love that. And the focus on Black female friendships was so near and dear to me. It was, because it's interesting, right? As we go from, being in our 20s into our 30s, into our 40s, navigating life, you're navigating career, you're navigating friendships and love and heartbreak and all the things that life throws at you. But then there's an additional layer added to it when you're a Black woman going through these spaces and these experiences that I've never seen put on paper, and I think that's what that felt. It felt very personal, and I appreciate you for that. You put words to things that I can say I personally experienced that I didn't have the words. I had the emotions, but not the words. But you talk about with a title like The Wilderness, right? What does that mean to you personally? Because I think of it as adulthood, and adulthood is ghetto. Why are we even here? Send me home. I want my parents to pay my bills again. What is The Wilderness to you?
The Wilderness, the original title came from this piece of art, a painting by the legendary, she's about to turn 100, LA artist Betty Saar. There's this painting she made in 1961 after she was living in Laurel Canyon at the time. There was a wildfire, and the painting is of the aftermath of wildlife in her neighborhood, and it's called The Wounded Wilderness. And I saw this sometime before the pandemic. There was a lot of Betty Saar shows around. She was being kind of re-celebrated. And I thought, when I saw it, that is exactly right. So this novel is based mostly in Los Angeles and New York. And I spent most of my life in both of those places. And particularly the way that if you live in LA, you try to control the things that you can control. You can't control traffic. You try to buy a house. You try to figure out how to feel like you have made it there. And then you just don't think about the things you can't control. You can't control earthquakes, right? And you cannot control fires. But every once in a while, you're reminded that these things can change your entire life. And they felt like an apt metaphor for just maturing or aging in general, which is that you you decide what are the things that I can navigate and try to choose and have agency over. But the reality of life is that sometimes these other things happen. And it felt very apt. So there was a period of time when the draft of the novel, it was called The Wounded Wilderness, but I tend to go a little bit a little bit dark in the novel draft titles, but it felt a little overdetermined because it's not just about woundedness, it's about the fact that you have to kind of navigate your own path. I also felt it made sense because, especially coming of age right now, really being any age, but particularly trying to figure out how to feel like you have a stable life with a rapidly sort of changing economy, with a rapidly deteriorating sort of political landscape, can feel like, oh, this is uncharted territory. So it felt apt for many reasons for the novel. And the other thing you mentioned about sort of particularly Black women and their experiences of coming into this moment in their life, I've been thinking about a lot more, especially since this current administration, because as you and I, I'm sure, are aware, by some counts, up to 300,000 Black women have lost their jobs, right, since early 2025. Of all those DOGE cuts in the government, 25% of them were Black women. And so I think particularly about the way that in the best of times, when the votes go the way that people want the votes to go, they're like, Black women, you're saving the country. But when things like this happen, everybody is quiet, right? We're sort of left within our own groups and our own communities to figure out how to sustain one another. Which we do, and which we have done historically. So I really wanted to think about, well, how are those communities made among each other, and why they are so important?
I love how you brought that up because there was one section in the novel where you hit that, and it's when they were in Chicago for the award, and
they're in Chicago. So one of
Yeah.
the friends, there's 4 friends, Desiree, January, Nakia, and Monique. And Nakia is a restaurateur in Los Angeles, and she gets nominated for a fancy culinary award that happens in June in Chicago, but it's not the James Beard Awards. It's something else. Yes.
And it's funny because as she's there nervous, is she going to get this award? And she's approached by a friend, and he basically is like, she gets the hint, like, I'm probably not going to get this award. But he tries to make her feel better by saying, when you guys were up, 2020 is over. When it was 2020, everybody was focused on ensuring that all the voices were heard and that people received awards because they deserved it and whatnot. But the moment's gone. Like, people have moved on from DEI and inclusivity and things like that. So just be proud of yourself. I'm proud of you. And it's just like,
Yeah. And we've all had that.
yeah, like, are we just a moment?
Right.
We're just a moment. So, like, when we're up, but, like, as soon as the moment is over, all of your hard work and your accomplishments no longer matter. That was infuriating, but felt so real. But
I don't know if that's happening at the actual James Beard Awards. Just
yeah.
But at this other award.
At this other award.
That happens at the same time in the same place.
Hint, hint. But there are many wildernesses explored throughout the novel, right? We talk about grief, there's parenthood, career uncertainty, loneliness, heartbreak. Was there one particular wilderness that felt more central to this?
Probably just the wilderness of being alive, just the sort of common human wilderness of trying to figure out like how to feel, if not satisfied, at least content with your own life, and not necessarily because you have your finances together or whatever, but just feeling like, oh, I am settled within myself. And I feel like all of the characters at different moments have to try to take stock of that, and it's constantly shifting. But that is probably the wilderness that I thought the most about, bigger than any sort of like all of the particular to who they are and where they live and when, was that thing that we all struggle with, which is just, I just have this one life. And yet sometimes I'm sitting here waiting for like a second, like what am I waiting for to feel like rooted in my life?
Yeah. So with that in mind, right, we have this one life. I'm gonna forever call life the wilderness now because it feels sexy.
Thank you.
Feels exciting. But do any of the characters make it out of the wilderness? Do you feel like you brought any of them out of the wilderness?
I think so.
Yeah?
Without spoiling, this is a book.
Have you guys read the book?
It's okay.
Okay,
I will not spoil.
Good. And if you haven't, come on.
I can spoil with book clubs, but like in this kind of setting, I know I can never spoil. But it's not necessarily the characters that you would expect. Some characters' trajectory end differently than you might have imagined, but those are the characters who I think had those moments, even though maybe they don't sort of pan out long term, they have those moments of feeling it. But I tried to figure out moments for all of those characters. So Nakia is a restaurateur, and January is a graphic designer. She's also the oldest, the first of the friend group to become a mother, and she has a lot of struggles with becoming a mother sort of before all of her friends have, and also having a very good on paper husband, who she maybe just doesn't like that much, right? But it's like, there's nothing wrong with him.
Morris is perfect. He's on paper.
Right. And Monique she begins the book as a librarian and ends the book with a reader who's very generous, described it as a social media and public intellectual, which I think is I think Monique would like that. Yeah. An influencer. And And Desiree, who's in a lot of ways the center of this friend group, has early losses in her life that make her really not aspire to much. She really just aspires for nothing else bad to happen to her. But in a lot of ways, she's the most interested in creating like a chosen family because of these early losses that she had in her life. I forgot your question before I decided to delve into this summary.
We were talking about if they made it out.
Yes.
But I'm glad you brought up January. Because I think so she shocked me. Because I'm like, okay, she's made the decision. It's done. She's walked away from Morris. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, girl, what are we doing? How did we get married? How did we get here? So I'm just curious, were there characters that surprised you or that changed significantly as you worked your way through the novel? Or did you have this all planned? Did you have it planned to stress me out, is the question.
Yes. I always find it so funny when people are like, are there characters who surprise you? Because you make the choices, but they do because I think there are different kinds of writers, but I outline and then I start writing and I realize, oh, I know these characters better. They're not gonna do that. Like I had this grand plan for this thing they're gonna do, but that's like, they're not gonna do that. So I have to outline again and perhaps again and again, given every time you make a choice on paper, they become fuller people. And then you have to sort of contend with it. And we've all read books where it's like, okay, given X and Y that we know about the character, there makes no sense that Z happened, right? Like Z had to happen for the plot, but it makes no sense for who the person was built to be and presented to be, which sometimes can be really delightful and you learn something new, and sometimes it's just annoying because it's like, there's just no way. Yeah. And I think that a good characterization has both, right? There are times because human beings can't even explain to themselves why they do certain things, right? But then there also is a way that the choices that you've made before are then sort of, they resonate in what happens later, or the choices you make later. There is so Desiree, who in a lot of ways seems very kind of meek in the novel, and this is not a spoiler because it's the first 25 pages of the book. The book opens with Desiree accompanying her grandfather. We sort of meet them landing in Paris. This is it's 2008, and we learned that he has planned a very elaborate end of life plan for himself. So they're gonna go hang around Paris for a few days. They're gonna take a train to Zurich, and he is gonna have a medically assisted suicide. And the outcome of that trip, she not only loses her grandfather, but she becomes estranged to her sister because her sister was not invited on that trip. And that is an estrangement that sort of casts like a shadow on Desiree's life throughout the novel. And the things that surprised me about the book was that estrangement became more present than I thought. I knew that they would be estranged, but I didn't know the ways that it would sort of reverberate throughout the book. But it became its own sort of meditation on sisterhood, and why people decide, people talk a lot about chosen family, assuming that that's just the people who are not biologically related to you. But we are adults. You choose everybody who's in your life, right? Not choosing, just feeling obligated, that's still a choice. You're grown, right? You could just decide, I don't want to affiliate with you. And people do it every day. And so the binary of who is our biological family and who is our chosen family, I wanted to complicate that some, because people choose every day not to associate or be in community with the people who are biologically related to them. So they're all decisions we make. So that was one thing that surprised me. And then the intricacies of their estrangement and the choices both of them make to prolong it or was also something, without spoiling, that surprised me. I knew, for instance, I knew that Desiree was going to meet a man that her estranged sister used to date. I didn't know what was going to happen next necessarily until I made that choice.
That section made me grateful that I'm an only child. So I just have to tell you. So I read that. I'm like, oof, girl, cut her off forever. That is it. We're not doing this anymore. What? It was that part, I stepped away and I said, you know what? We really are a sum of our choices. And that is that. that is where we're going to leave that. But I think you do such a fantastic job of balancing technology, social media, politics, and like the social changes without making them the sole focus of the novel. Because I kept having moments of, yeah, right. And then all of a sudden we're back to, oh wait, it's a dinner party. Like that's what's also inspiration, thank you very much. I'm like, now I need to host think tanks in my living room. We will solve world peace here. How do you manage to balance the personal stories with those larger societal forces throughout the novel?
I get asked this a lot. I really don't think about them and I don't have a binary relationship to them. I write realist fiction. We live in a society. A society has a lot of parts that many of them are political. To me, it feels the fact that you can get mail at your house, that's politics.
Yeah.
To me, the binary is usually when people say, oh, this is political, unless it's literally I don't know, a few good men. If it's the binary between novels that are political or not, to me, feels like something about what our level of comfort to, I think especially Americans, we have a lot of discomfort with the fact that politics do influence our day-to-day life. I don't think that's a thing that every culture shares, but I think it's part of the individualist feeling that we want to believe they don't affect our day-to-day life. But they do, these politics does. And so I really don't think about it. I think even my first novel, The Turner House, had a lot of sections that were in the 1940s. Even historical fiction, there are political realities, right, that affect where people can literally live, especially Black people throughout this country, where you can literally live, what kinds of schools your children can go to. But there is nobody in this country whose life is outside of politics, even the wealthiest. At that point, then it's oh, are you going to be able to acquire this company? Maybe you will, depending on who's in office. And who you can bribe and make go to Madison Square when nobody wants you to be in Madison Square. That's, even that billionaire, he is subject to politics, right? So, yeah, I think it's just, I don't think about it at all as separate. I don't think, oh, here's a moment, I have the right balance, I can squeeze in politics. I love, as a writer, free and direct discourse. So I'm just in the character's brain, and they're just thinking about stuff. And some of those things are what we call capital P politics.
I love that that's your response to it, because it is such an unfortunate but natural part of our daily lives that the way you presented that throughout the novel felt natural as well.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. But it's funny that you say that us in America, politics feels more present. But being a foreigner, everybody tends to forget that I'm Jamaican. It's very prevalent there as well. And in all of the other countries that I've lived in, granted, many of them were predominantly Black countries, it was also very prevalent. But that leads me to my next thought. Because the dance hall all throughout, as I was reading it, I try to go through these novels without doing research on the authors, because I'm trying to get to know you through your writing. And the entire time I was thinking, is she Jamaican? Is there some Caribbean influence in there? There's a lot of dance hall being sprinkled in this. And, I think of it like the bashment parties in New York. I went to school in New York as well. So I was thinking about that as you were they're having these complicated conversations, and then a song would come on. I'm like, oh my God, of all the times for that to be it. But there was a lot of music influence throughout it, talking about going from dance hall to, at one point we're talking about Motown, to Bach coming from behind the wall, and I'm just curious, and you mentioned an artist that inspired you to, at the very least, decide on the title of the book. But I'm wondering what other influences, whether it be other writers or books or artists, that influenced you throughout, because I felt like there was so much of that throughout the book as well.
First off, I am not Caribbean, but I've lived in New York for most of my adult life. And you know, they call Flatbush.
Yeah,
like,
oh, yeah.
That's just a parish of Jamaica, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
But an artist, there's so many artists. Absolutely all of theirs. I have how many epigraphs in that book? I had to get a lot of permissions. Audre Lorde, the late Los Angeles poet Wanda Coleman, June Jordan, Toni Morrison, Gail Jones. But there's also Octavia Butler mentioned in the book. I really love writing books that feel like of the time that they are supposed to be in. I think it's part of setting to me. And like the cultural references. There was a school of thought when I was in an MFA program those things, if you put too many like songs, et cetera, that takes away from the timelessness. But like Tolstoy would disagree. You read like Anna Karenina, they're always at the opera. There's always like side jokes about like which ballerina is hot. And part of the fun is you've got to go to the appendix or the notes, and you have to, like, if you really want to get the joke, you're flipping back and forth. So my aspiration is perhaps, you know, years from now there'll be editions, but that's what they're just going to have the footnotes so that you understand the Vibes Cartel mention, or, you know, the like Elephant Man mention, and that's fine. And I think that it's something that helps you feel immersed in that moment. So in addition to those writers, the artist who's on the cover, Mickalene Thomas, who's a friend and who's certainly an inspiration, just the ways that she thinks about like the sort of traditions, the artistic traditions that she's interested in, which include like, you know, Romare Bearden, but also like Rembrandt. And I'm just interested in people who have processes that are really inspiring to me. My friend, the artist Kentura Davis, another visual artist who makes portraits they're drawings. They're mostly on charcoal, but she embosses the paper with text. She has this really intricate and very time-consuming process so the text might be literally from like the 13th Amendment, but the picture will be just like a beautiful like Black woman. It might be Ava DuVernay, which is in the National Portrait Gallery. I'm interested in anything that feels like there's sort of layered references and like an intricate process behind it.
I love that, because you feel like a layered reference sitting next to me.
Thank you.
But, okay, we have 2 minutes. So I will skip through my 20 questions and jump to this one, right? You spent so much time with all of these characters, right? And I'm curious, of which conversation do you wish that the reader could overhear that did not make it into the novel?
Oh, gosh. Probably, I wish, it didn't really make sense for the focus of this novel, but I wish I had figured out how, like if there was, I don't know, if there were extras, right? If this was a deluxe edition with extras. I was talking about the sisters who are estranged. We don't really see them before that estrangement because the story is not about them, right? It is about this group of friends. But I, in my mind, have an idea of what their relationship was like before. It was not great. There was a real older sister, younger sister dynamic in a lot of ways, but there was also like care and love and like lightness. Mm-hmm. And so perhaps if there was ever, you know, deleted scenes, I never wrote that, but I had it in my mind, it would be that.
It's interesting, because we got a little taste of them. One of them was 9, when they took the 2-hour journey to go see, who was it? I forget.
They were going to see their grandfather, yeah.
And
but they were fighting in the back seat.
Exactly.
On the 5 freeway, you know.
And then there's
coming from Oakland to LA, yeah.
Right. There's another one where there was a concert. She had gotten it, and her grandpa had plans and couldn't take them, right? And they got that sketch
Yeah.
You know, and she was so excited. And just
Danielle
to hear,
was like, that doesn't look like us.
Right?
So a moment that wasn't like that.
Yeah. And I'm like,
a moment that was maybe not them fighting or Danielle being like a mean, like bossy older sister.
Yeah.
Probably would have been nice.
oh, that would have been nice. Because I just kept thinking, like, you just have each other. It's just the two of you. Why can't we just
This
get
is just
along?
a lovely only child speaking here. Yeah.
That is me and my parents being like, kumbaya.
Right.
It's like, we're all best friends. It's okay. Me and my teddy bears. But yeah, I would have loved to have learned more about them. I want a moment when they were braiding hair. I just think of like two little black girls sitting there and braiding hair and like painting each other's toes and things like that. But life isn't always like that.
It is not.
And that's the truth of it. It's
That's
not
true.
always like that.
Yeah.
So I'm now a minute over my time that I'm allotted. So I'm going to cut it off. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. This was amazing.
Thank you.
I just want to remind you all, if you haven't already, please go pick up a copy of The Wilderness. Get some tissues. I kid you not. I finished it at 6 a.m. 3 days ago, and I was crying, and my husband was like, what happened? I was like, I just have to get in the shower. I'm like, it's okay. It was great. Thank you. Thank you so much for putting pen to paper. Yes, we will. Pen to paper, all of the thoughts that float through a little black girl's mind that she can't quite put on paper. But we are going to open it to all of you who may have questions. And please, I've been reminded to tell you all to wait till the microphone gets to you.
Hi, I'm so glad I got to come hear you speak. I loved what you said about chosen family. That's lovely. I was just wondering how much of this story was drawn from your own experience and how much of it might have been drawn from what you might want or are looking for or hoping for or prescribing.
I mean, I feel like the thing about, I don't want to get on my anti-AI soapbox, but whatever I will. The thing about art is that it's all from your experience, even if none of it, is from your experience. I am part of several friend groups who were all eager to read this so they could be like, I accuse you of stealing my life. And what's really funny is that nobody has been able to make that claim successfully. I had one friend who, chapter by chapter, she'd be like, I'm January, how dare you? I'm Nakia, how dare you? I'm Monique, how dare you? And I'm like, at this point, you've proven that you're none of these people. But the thing about art is that the really exciting thing about it is that your subconscious really comes through in all of these ways. And that is the thing that I feel, I don't know how many of you saw the scandal where the Commonwealth Prize was awarded to what perhaps was like an AI-generated story. I read a little bit of it, and the metaphors were mixing in a way I did not like. But I would wager that the reason why that fiction will not be as successful is because you don't feel that third thing coming out, right? Which is like the thing the author intended and then the thing that shows up on the page. But then there's this weird third thing that is like just the substance of being alive that ends up, it's the reason why the critic Andrea Long Chu, when she doesn't like a writer, she'll read all of their works and she will point out these tendencies they have, right? Like sentences that show up in every novel. They have a fixation with cake and it shows up in every novel, and it's so exposing because you don't know you're doing that, right? But you're doing it. And so I answer the question to say none of me and all of me, because it's also just the beauty of the process of a novel. It's so slow that it all just sort of ends up there. Mm-hmm.
Okay, we're going to Mrs. Phaneuf, my high school English teacher.
Oh my gosh, amazing.
Hi, Shantaw. Hello, Ms. Flournoy. I'm So thrilled to be here. I have to share that our book group here on the island, there's quite a few of us from the book group, read this, and we had the most delightful evening exploring the complexity of your book. And the complexity of your book still overwhelms me, so it's fun to sort of relive it as you discuss it. My question is about the role of the many cities in your novel. And I grew up in New England. I've always lived in New England. I've lived a little in New York, a little in other places, but I am fascinated. I think young generations move around a lot, it appears to me, for schooling, for jobs. And I just wonder if you can talk to, and I'm sorry if I'm not posing this super clearly, I'm fascinated by the role that movement plays in young Americans' lives today. And I wonder, Los Angeles, New York, Chicago, and Europe, do you think that your life has been changed? To what degree do you think movement like that shapes characters and individuals' lives? I don't know if that question makes sense, but I think your novel really, those places are people in your characters' lives, it appears to me.
Thank you. See, nobody's ever asked me that before. We need more English teachers to be at these events. My first novel, The Turner House, was really, it's about the Great Migration, but after that movement, it is about a family where everybody, besides the people who ended up in the military in this big family, they stay in Detroit or around Detroit. It's like a big departure that somebody like moves to the suburbs. And my mother moved into a house around the corner from her best friend, my auntie, and lived there until she died, so for about 22 years. And my other aunt moved around the corner from her and is still there. And so all told, they're like 30 years into this neighborhood in LA County. And that, I don't really know anybody who, like, people can aspire for that to be their lives of my generation, but I really don't know anyone who has lived like that. I know a few people who I went to high school with who really, they had to fight basically to end up back in the neighborhood we grew up in because it's more expensive and the older people in the neighborhood have not moved out. So there's not that much like housing availability. And I think that it has to do with just like wildly unaffordable, like increasing expenses that are not keeping a pace with salaries for millennials. And I would say probably younger members of Gen X also. And I think it also has to do with technology, right? So people, I think, probably feel a little less nervous about moving because even if you don't have your friend group, you have your group chat, right? So you're not gonna be completely alone in the same way that perhaps it would have felt like a generation ago, that if you moved, there was nothing. I don't necessarily think of it as a negative or a positive. I think that there can be some positives, including the young people that I see moving into different cities and eager to sort of meet people. They seem to be more interested in joining like social aid groups, like joining a mutual aid group, joining something that is like community oriented in this way that can help build some of the like community infrastructure that whether you lived there for 30 years or just moved there is necessary. Especially in both LA and New York, I see that. A lot of the people who are interested in, really, one thing that's really trendy in New York right now is trash clubs. Young people are joining like groups to pick up trash, braving encounters with rats at night. Because they're meeting people that way, right? People are falling in love in the trash clubs. And so that's the sort of thing that makes me hopeful about all of the kind of like transientness versus feeling like these people are never gonna have community, is that they actually are kind of hitting the ground running and trying to figure out how to get community. I think especially post-pandemic, a lot of people are starting to become more wary that there's a hack, that tech is gonna solve the problem of relationships, and are realizing, oh, we might just have to go outside and speak to somebody. Yeah. Yeah, touch grass, as they say. Even if it's a run club, which everybody hates on run clubs in cities, but I have no problem with them, it's fine.
I love the trash club. I'm like, that sounds like our clean team.
You have a clean team?
We have a clean team on Nantucket.
Okay, so yeah, same
Yeah,
thing.
yeah. So shout out to the clean team.
Right, fewer rats, I imagine, to fight, though.
Certainly fewer rats. I'd imagine the few that we have are much different size
Yeah,
as well.
makes a difference.
Fortunately. There's, oh, okay. Can we do 2 more? Because there's someone in the back that's had her hand raised for a while as well.
But my question is not nearly as eloquent as her question. I'm not an English teacher. But you spent so much time with these women and characters, developing them and, inhabiting their minds. At the end of the writing, are you kind of lonely or sad? Do you miss these people? Because I would feel like so entranced with these people that at the end I might feel, I don't know, like let down or sad.
At the end of the writing, like my brain and body hurts. I am just like, goodbye. I wish, because it just feels not that it's easier, but like in some ways, because I feel like building characters that I believe are real is really hard. Like that's the work that is hard for me. If I could return to them, it seems like that would not be a burden that I had anymore. But I just don't feel that. Like I just feel like I put you all through so much. So sorry, goodbye. I don't feel, I think perhaps if I could have a healthier, like less all-consuming relationship with writing fiction, I could have that feeling. But this book took me on and off like 10 years, and I'm just like, goodbye. I've got to write a short book with 3 people next time. And like, it's all happening in like 3 days. That's what I always feel at the end is like, I'm gonna figure out how to make this easier next time. So I gotta start with brand new everything, so.
That makes me nervous because I need more of these characters. I'm like, can we get another in 10 years? Just a follow-up. What are we doing?
That's what Hollywood is for. They can like adapt it, and they could do that. They can make them do all kinds of crazy
was
things.
Sent here to break our hearts, I swear. Okay. The lady with the braids in the back. Love your hair.
I just wanted to say thank you so much for your work. I think there was an invitation of friendship for Black women, but also I think there was truly an invitation for the interior of Black women. And so for me, that's what I was thinking of. And so moving these characters beyond 2026 for me was so important because it created a future, right, beyond. I often think of characters off the page beyond that. And so the entire time in the book is that there's this invitation, I find, for these women to come into a wilderness, for them to dive in and interrogate. And so I think my question here is that, is there a wilderness as I think of these characters off the page beyond 2026? Is there a wilderness that you have some foresight that you hope that they might take an invitation to enter?
Thank you. I thought about a lot, like the fact that one of the reasons I wanted to project into the future, it's only to 2027, 2028, but I started this book in 2016, so it felt like so far away, and then it took forever, so now it's tomorrow. But I wanted to assert, even if things are not perfect, even if bad things happen, that there is like continuation. One thing I've been thinking about in that regard is, especially since the beginning of the year, is Minneapolis. I've been thinking about why it was so inspiring to see their resistance to, like state violence and intimidation. Part of it is because, not just because Minnesotans are nice, but because the assumption of what a community can look like, you're supposed to, it's supposed to be people who are in a similar milieu to you, perhaps, worship like you, et cetera. What was happening in Minneapolis is people saying, no, it has to be bigger than that. And I think that in order to resist this era of increasing sort of state intimidation and violence, and ironically from the small government people, big government trying to tell us how we're supposed to live, is it will require people to have that kind of expansiveness, right? When they think about who can they be in community with, who are they willing to stand up alongside? And that is one of the things that I wanted to think about in the book, bigger than just your group chat or who you have mimosas with on the weekend, is how can you think more expansively about who you're willing to be alongside, right? Who you want to be in your life. And even if it's just like, I don't understand how they live in my neighborhood, I don't understand what they do on the weekend, but I don't want to stop seeing them on the weekend doing the thing I don't understand, right? And that is a thing that makes me very hopeful, and that was a feeling that I hoped I could transmit in the book. Mm-hmm.